Welcome to Retirement Unlocked with Larry Heller. Your life, your way, unlimited possibilities. Join us as we explore how tailored financial planning and investments can help you navigate life transitions with confidence. Let's dive into this week's episode.
And welcome back to Retirement Unlocked with Larry Heller. Today, it's a special episode. This is Larry's 200th episode of this podcast. When Larry started the podcast, the goal was simple: to help people make better financial decisions as they approach and move through retirement. 200 episodes later, he has had some incredible conversations, worked with amazing clients, and seen firsthand how education can truly change financial outcomes. In today's episode, we're going to pull back the curtain, sharing how the podcast was started and what we've learned along the way, how it's impacted clients, the firm, and where we are headed next. Larry, 200, man, my friend.
200th, and I look exactly the same, Bill, as I
know,
did
it's beautiful.
years ago. Remember, we only do like 2 podcasts a month, so it's been a long time if you do the math. So, but at the time, it's flown by. And, you know, I've changed a lot since the very first podcast. You couldn't see my face or your face.
Oh, yeah.
It was just audio.
It was audio only. Yep.
Yeah, audio only for the first 100. So, but, you know, as we grow, and then video came aboard after 100 episodes. So now we've got 100 video episodes that we've done. So, yeah, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of go down memory lane, why we started, why we're doing this, some of the most prominent episodes, what's going on in the future. 200 is not the end. You're not going to get rid of me so quickly. So we're going to continue going forward. But it's been a great run.
Well, that's good, because I don't think of it like getting rid of you would be a bad thing. Okay, I like having our visits, and I'm sure every one of our listeners love visiting with you on all of these podcasts. So let's go back to the beginning, Larry. Why did you start this thing?
Yeah, so we started it for a couple of reasons. One, just between all the education that I've had and all the client experiences and seeing what people have done wrong more than right, or people that have missed and things out there. So how can we help people out there?
Yeah.
So really started kind of more of education, which still is today. I mean, that's the main kind of focus, is really educating, knowledge, providing helpful tips to people, especially with a lot of the changes in the tax laws that have happened. And how do you navigate what has gone on, not just in your finances and retirement, but your life?
Yeah.
So that's really what it is, and trying to fill the gaps in some of these complex topics and tax planning strategies, and maybe make it a little bit easier to understand. So, those were kind of the main focuses of this. And the commitment was to create something that was consistent, that was even, and a platform for people to learn. So, and I think we've been pretty successful in providing that place for not only our clients, but for potential people out there that may want to just enjoy listening to us, or maybe thinking about coming aboard. Because really, most people don't need products. We're not about products. We're really about the strategies and understanding the strategies and how that can work and how that can help you not only in retirement, but save you money and help your life improve.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know during the podcast that you and I have done together, what you are really good at is you take that complex and those complex issues, you take all the multitudes of financial products that are out there, and you really do bring a better understanding. You don't make them simple. You make them easy to understand, which is fantastic. But 200, Larry, I told you right before we started this, most podcasts don't make it past a handful of podcasts. They don't make it past 4. You made 200. So my first thought, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are wondering, like, where did he come up with all the ideas for 200 episodes?
When I first started, that was kind of my biggest concern, and thinking through the episode. I mean, I've had a couple of different hosts out there, and Matt was my first host out there. I remember kind of talking to him about, oh, what am I going to talk about? I don't really have enough. I have 5 or 6 things I want to talk about. And, I was worried about really getting the content, but, he was right. He was basically, once you get going, you'll figure that out. And he was right. We now have a ton of ideas and topics and things to talk about. So really coming up with the educational topics and what's timely and out there is kind of one of the reasons why this podcast has gone on, because like we said before, life changes, taxes change, the strategies change. So we've been able to come up with a lot of different content. I've also had some very amazing guests that have helped us with this, and being able to find guests that are enlightening and also being able to help our clients. So that's kind of really where we started. Of course, coordinating this in a busy schedule has been a challenge, and constantly updating it. Like we said before, when we first started, there really was no YouTube on this. So it was really all audio, but then, adding YouTube, adding all our social media channels to this is really kind of, developed. So the evolution of content, the quality and the structure has really evolved from episode 1 to episode 200.
Yeah, well, I'm a guy who spent almost 4 decades in television. And one of the rules in TV, and I suspect you learned this, is it's the old thing. First, you tell people what you're going to tell them. Then you tell people the thing you're going to tell them. And then you tell it again, because repetition matters. You probably have found that to be very true in a number of these episodes, because things do change, right?
Right. Well, there's kind of 2 things that I've learned. One, simplicity wins, right? Because if you're too technical, someone's going to turn off and they're not going to be there. So like you said before, being able to not just be simple, but break it down so the layperson can understand. Because a lot of times, a lot of us advisors, and I've sat in with some estate attorneys, and they, great estate attorneys, but if they can't explain it properly, the client's eyes glaze over. Same thing for us, we're our clients. You've got to kind of be able to bring it down to what the client's going to understand. And I try to do that with the podcast. So when I'm talking to people, really explain it. So that's really been one of the things. And the other thing that I think has really helped and people's really enjoyed is, without naming names, but adding in real life examples. Those seem to resonate with everybody, so they can relate to what's going on. So, those are kind of the lessons that I think that I've learned over the years. But just, but what goes on behind the scenes a little bit, it's not off the cuff. There's a lot of planning, a lot of scripting, a lot of refining. We have to stay relevant with all the tax law changes that have come. I mean, the biggest one obviously was the Secure Act. And that was, that had a lot of different changes that affected retirement. So, but it keeps coming. Changes is going to be inevitable, and we'll stay on top of that, and we'll continue to educate our listeners.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And, you mentioned it when you first started, you didn't have the video component. Now you've got the video component and the audio component. So that's a sense of how podcasting for you has evolved. Give us some other insights into how this whole thing of Retirement Unlocked, the podcast, evolved for you.
Right. I remember the first audio one. Yeah, I was definitely nervous and what to talk about, but I was like, nobody can see me. So, they can't see my facial expression.
See me sweating here. I don't know what's going on.
So I thought after 100 of them, I got the audio down and I'm comfortable with that. And then I'm like, now we got to go to video. So now there's no hiding behind the microphone. They can see you and they can see your expressions and they can see what you're talking about. So, that's been a change, and, it took a while to get comfortable in those. And now I just feel real comfortable behind the microphone. So, that's probably a big change. And then really from the social media standpoint, not only do we do these videos, but we do the short content.
Yes.
There's more accessible and bite size, so people can just listen to a little bit. And if they want to listen to the whole episode, they can. There's been obviously a lot of competition in podcasts. So if we're not out there producing content that people like, and I'm constantly hearing from my clients that I watch this podcast, I enjoy this podcast, I learned from this podcast. Good. So I'm getting the feedback, so I know that it's out there, because there's a lot of different people, a lot of different podcasts in this area that people can listen to.
Well, I mean, look, when 200 episodes ago, too, there weren't a lot of financial advisors doing this. You were a pioneer in all of this. There are a lot more advisors now who've jumped into this arena.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, being relevant, being on topic, being, easy to understand, brings listeners in to really understand, to really enjoy our podcast. So we've made it, we've structured the episodes, we've made it more visual. And I think we've added some visual content recently. And we continue to grow on topics that are geared to different audiences. Obviously, not every topic is going to be relevant for everybody.
Right.
So we try to do ones that we think are going to be interesting for some people, a group of people, and mix it up a little bit. And it keeps it exciting and fresh for me as well.
Yeah, that is great. Okay, it's 200 episodes here, Larry, which is a lot of episodes. So I'm going to test your memory here, because I'm curious about what are your top performing episodes on YouTube, and how have things done? What are they?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting what which ones, and it's not one specific area. I mean, the biggest topic, and every time you throw out, retirement mistakes to avoid. I think I've done a few different podcasts over the years, but I believe episode 177 was, retirement mistakes to avoid. And that's always a big topic. And then, the one that we just did, literally maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple of months ago, really your 5-year retirement countdown, steps to take now, episode 195. That really resonated with people, because a lot of people are 5 years away and they're like, oh, what are the steps that I need to do?
Exactly.
So that was a big episode that had a lot of traction. But then we've also had some episodes on investing that have gone over well. We did one, the managing sequence of return risks, how that can impact your retirement. And then one of the earlier ones on the video side, was a big talk about, the great wealth transfer. And we did kind of a 2-part episode on that, and all the things that are happening along those lines. So those are, probably the top 4 that we've had on YouTube since we went to that platform.
Yeah, wow, that is really great. How about shorts? How's that work, incorporating short form content into the podcast?
Short form content has really helped, because it gets the word out there. Because when you're on YouTube, I don't know about you, but most people are there scrolling. So you got to come up with something in a really quick, bite size, less than 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So they say, that's really interesting. And then from there, if they want to hear more, they'll go and listen or watch the full podcast. So that's really, really helped. And some of the shorts, again, on retirement, are you spending too little in retirement? Because what we found over the years, believe it or not, most people spend too little in retirement.
Sure. Most people are afraid they're going to run out of money.
Exactly. So that was an interesting podcast. And then, 6 silent threats to your retirement, and you want to test if you're ready in retirement. So a lot of good shorts that have been out there. And retiring soon, don't mess up your withdrawal strategy. So knowing kind of what you're doing and how to do that has really been helpful on the YouTube shorts to get more traction and get more people to watch the full episode of the podcast.
Do you have any insight on why do you think they performed well? What's the big thread that ties them all together?
I think, one, it's geared to a little bit maybe more of the baby boomer audience, which is a lot of people, age 55 to 75 is probably what we're geared towards. But I think there are 2 things. I think The topics are extremely timely. We give actionable, we don't give specific recommendations, but we're giving actionable ideas to think about and things to discuss. And we're giving real examples, and we're showing how to solve some real financial concerns. So, most of the episodes really weren't the most complex, but they were the most practical.
Yeah. I mean, we're back to what you mentioned it up at the top. It's that you take complex things and you break them down so that people can understand them. And when people understand them, they understand their practical application, because most people, when it comes to money, they like being practical here, I think, probably. What have you learned? Because retirement's a big topic, or big reoccurring topic. What have you learned about retirement planning over this?
Yeah, so
episodes?
I mean, a few of the things that we've learned just from our clients and podcasting, and what we've heard back is retirement is more about cash flow than net worth, because somebody can have a lot more money, but they spend a lot more money. So retirement is really about planning for for cash flow. And then taxes. I mean, that's the biggest kind of concern. A lot of people have very large 401ks or IRAs and don't realize the tax ramifications about that. So taxes is one of the biggest. And then planning is kind of ongoing. It's not a one-time event, but you're not just planning for this current year. You're planning and looking decades ahead, because you want to kind of see what your tax brackets are, and you want to kind of see what your cash flow is going to be to know what you want. So planning is probably one of the critical ones. And then again, we've talked about clarity, simplicity, and having a plan, because they make that provides better outcomes than someone doesn't have a plan. So those are kind of the top four, and probably one of my favorite topics to talk about, and we've done a couple of these episodes, is on what we call our reservoir strategy, showing where you should be investing your money in retirement and how to draw down from that, so you don't have to worry when we have these wild downswings in the market. So episode 119, if you want to go back and listen to the reservoir strategy. So those are some of the main items that we have learned along the way.
I would imagine after 200 episodes and everything that you've been talking about, Larry, you might feel a little bit of gratitude. I'm kind of curious if that's the case.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very appreciable. I'm very appreciable that people are, watching, listening, like I said before, giving me feedback on how much they enjoyed that podcast, or they may say, what, I didn't know that, or yeah, that's a great idea. We should talk more about that. So getting that feedback really makes this really rewarding, that I'm hearing that back from viewers and clients. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for all the subscribers. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, you can go right onto the YouTube website and subscribe, so you won't miss any episodes.
Yes.
And I'll just throw out a number, or maybe I'll ask you to guess, Bill, if you haven't seen, is like, how many views do you think we've had on YouTube since we've gone on?
Oh man, you've been on it 10 years.
It's probably less on YouTube. We were on video, but I'm not sure. We were on somewhere else before we were on YouTube.
Okay. So. You had 100 episodes. I don't know. I don't know.
We're closing in on 50,000 views. So,
wow.
So a lot of people, we know a lot of views, and that keeps increasing. So I wanted to thank our longtime listeners. I really appreciate all the feedback, the emails, the comments, and we've done a lot of audio people that have listened. So I wanted to thank basically all the listeners. I also want to thank all the guests that have been on the podcast. We've had, dozens and dozens of guests over the years. So they've been really have added to the podcast and mixed it up a little bit. So, we have a little bit of a banter going back and forth with the guests. So thank you to the guests. Thank you to the listeners. I really appreciate it.
All right. We promised them this in the beginning. So it's time, Larry. What is next for Retirement Unlocked?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really different. We're going to stay the course. It's worked so far. We're going to continue to focus on education first content. We're going to continue on talking about topics such as investments and retirement and tax and planning. We're going to stay ahead of any of the changes that may be coming. And continue to talk about that. And we're going to, the show is definitely going to progress. As many of you know, we're now part of Savant Wealth Management. So we're going to kind of figure out how to maybe use some of that and go forward. And so we're going to evolve that way, maybe have some potential experts from Savant as guests on the broadcast. So those are some of the things that are coming up. We're looking ahead. Episode 200 isn't the finish line. It's just a checkpoint.
Yeah, and I'm glad because I enjoy these visits with you. I enjoy this podcast. I think it is a practical, good, interesting podcast, especially for people who I think come to Financial Advisor Podcast looking for things they don't understand. They're like, I'm confused. And I think that, over these 200 episodes, your evolution has been to be better even at making them understandable, not simple, because some of these things are not simple, but you make them understandable. Congratulations, Larry. I mean, truly, genuinely, it's an outstanding milestone, and I think it is fantastic. So congratulations to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Bill.
And you know what, listeners? Thank you for being part of this journey. Whether you've listened to one episode, this one, or if you've been listening for all 200. If you've been listening for all 200, we love you. Thank you. And spread the word, if you will. If this podcast has helped you think differently about retirement, share it with someone that could benefit. And if you're approaching retirement and you want some clarity around your plan, your cash flow, your taxes, your long-term strategy, well, Larry is here to help. You can schedule a complimentary 20-minute call with our team. And as always, thank you for listening to Retirement Unlocked.